If you like libraries, art, calligraphy, or poetry, or Beauty and the Beast, you might like this episode. Hi friends, I'm Ashley. Welcome to Darling Cottage Diary. Today we are making an art journal page inspired by Beauty and the Beast and a wonderful French poet named Guillaume Apollinaire. If you don't know that name, perhaps you might recognize his peers named Gertrude Stein, Picasso, Salvador Dali, Degas, any of the early turn of the 20th century artists, poets, and writers who spent time in Montmartre in Paris and changed the face of modern art as we know it. I love his work and we're gonna try to make one of his poems today. But before we do that, I did want to introduce you to a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pen, calligraphy pen, fountain pen that I'm reviewing for Ferris Press. This video is not sponsored, but they did send this to me for free. And I wanted to make sure I did a justice review on it because it is a beautiful piece of work. And with the holidays coming up, I thought many of you might be looking for something that is sustainable. Having a fountain pen, you can just refill it with different kind of inks, and it's just a very nice, luxurious, elegant gift, as well as, you know, a gift for yourself too. So I'm pairing this beautiful Joule pen, this is the color Chantilly, with the Beauty and the Beast pink blush color ink that they also sent. It's a beautiful shade of kind of a muted pink, and the shimmer has hints of gold, but it also has kind of an iridescent, almost mermaid scale, greenish purplish tint to it too. So it's very reminiscent of the rose, of like a pinkish rose, and the shimmer kind of reminds me of the stems, kind of in dappled shade. Very beautiful ink, wonderful pen. I'm so happy with it. I definitely highly, highly recommend it. So I am going to be writing with this at the end of the video, writing the poem I'm going to be talking about at the end of the video, but I wanted to show it to you because I'm also going to be using the ink to create part of the background of the art page itself. So this art page was inspired by my Ephemera Club's theme that they chose this month. Cozy Library is November's theme, and I was so excited to do that. It did take me a hot minute to kind of work out all the stuff that I wanted to make for it, but once I started, then all of the ideas finally started coming to me. And so I wanted to create a whimsical kind of library scene so that I could also include the library pocket that was on their printable for the month, because with the with both tiers you get the printable, which you'll see later in the video, that has a library pocket and a checkout card, like a due date card. And so I wanted to include that because I knew I wanted to write my poem on that. And then the rest of the page I just wanted to be whimsical and a little Beauty and the Beast inspired because of the color of the ink. And of course the library is basically like Belle's engagement ring in Beauty and the Beast, at least the cartoon version. And so wanted to include some bookish stickers that I made as well, and some just really pretty luxurious textures, because those old libraries, particularly in France and Germany, in Austria, you have gorgeous molding on the walls, and you have these beautiful plaster sculptures, and there's so much texture. And then of course you have the books themselves, which smell glorious, and the old books have the gilded lettering on them, and it's just such a feast for the eyes. And so I wanted to bring in little elements of that throughout this page. And the ink splattering is also reminiscent of taking notes in a library, and maybe you spilled your ink or your fountain pen spit, or you're trying to clean it and write. And I just, like, ink stained papers are very romantic in my mind. So I wanted to have that as part of the background with a faux plaster design to give it texture behind the other elements that I was bringing in. And I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about the type of poem of Apollinaire that I'm going to be mimicking later. So he wrote normal poetry, and he also was a huge art critic, and so he helped bring the ideas of cubism and surrealism and all of these new types of techniques that these artists were using, that he understood the technique and fantastical nature behind. So he was a huge part in bringing all of that to the public understanding. But he was also quite the poet himself, and he saw a disconnect between all these beautiful visual arts as well as moving pictures, which were, as a burgeoning new industry at that time as well. There was a disconnect between all this innovation in visual art and innovation in writing. And so he created the Calligramme, which is taking the lines of a poem and using it as lines to create a picture. So that when you look at the picture, you look at the poem, you see the picture first, and then you read it. And it's not always clear what line starts it and what line isn't. It's almost as if it's about one subject that the shape is about, but the lines and the words can almost be read in any order. And obviously, if you do rhyming couplets or anything like that, there is an order, and that's part of the fun of trying to figure it out. And so he has one poem that is called Dans ma maison, which means in my house. And it's very short, and he just says, in my house, I want an intelligent woman and a cat who passes between my books and my loved ones during all of this season. And without these things, I cannot live. It sounds much more, if you are bilingual or more, if you're a polyglot, you understand how frustrating it is trying to translate normal words, and then poetry just doesn't always come across right because it doesn't sound as romantic, and it goes the same way. Like trying to translate Shakespeare into other languages, I wouldn't want that job. And so it's kind of the same, And so I wrote my poem in French to try to use some of the same the beginning and ending sentence that he did. But I would encourage you to use this in your language because it's a really fun exercise to do. This is my sticker sheet that's going out to Ephemera Club this month. So they're all library themed. Obviously, the quotes on both of the due date pages, obviously one's in French, one's in English, but they say the same thing. And then the Erasmus quote is in English as well. And the 398.2, if you don't know that joke, that is the fairy tale section of the library. And that returned me to 398.2 in the Dewey Decimal System is more about me than any book. So you can just send me there. But so this will be going out to everybody this week, and I really like how this sticker sheet turned out. So if you're interested in my Patreon, my Ephemera Club, I'll leave that link below, and there will be an envelope of stuff that goes out, but I didn't have it all made yet by the time I was filming this. So this is the printable that is already available on Patreon. It's two printables, this beautiful vintage wallpaper, and then the design that I made to put in your journal as you like. So I wanted to use parts of it, and I actually ended up using more of it than I thought I would, but I figured this belongs to the library of. I want to get a stamp of that. One of my best friends has a stamp that says like from the library and it has her name, and I think that's so cool because we're book hoarders in this part of the internet. But anyway, so one of the pages I wanted to have an abstract kind of whimsical library theme, and then have this pocket here that contained my little poem. And so just also speaking about the poem, so finishing what I was saying earlier, I encourage you to think about your ideal home, and that can be the home you live in right now and you just want to describe it in a whimsical way. So for example, mine says, in my house, I want a generous man, a rabbit who sleeps in front of books, and chickens who give me golden eggs, kids who follow me around, and stacks of letters stained with bits of ink. And that's the heart, the house of my heart. Forgive me, it sounds clunky because I'm translating in my head, but in French it rhymes. So that's what I end up writing later in the video. But it doesn't have to be super long, just as many. I ended up adding a couple more sentences than I originally wanted to because I needed more lines to make my shape, which is a book like opening with pages that are falling open. And the first time I did it, it was not going to fit on the page. And then the second time it fit better, but still probably should have used a wider page. In either case, I like how it turned out, and if it bothers me that much, I'll go back and fix it. And there is a note about this paper that I recommend for printing. It's a matte photo paper, which prints beautifully and all the details and textures of anything that is in the PDF file. However, if you're using a fountain pen or just like a liquid ink pen, it absorbs a lot. Like it pulls a lot of ink out of the pen, which makes it look a little messy. So you might want to print out just the card on a regular cardstock or something so that that doesn't happen when you write over it. I kind of forgot about that it does that until I started writing and just was too lazy to reprint it. So just a word of warning if you do use that. Now, I've had several requests from my French viewers to do a full episode in French, like maybe voiceovering in French. So if you speak English and you'd like to hear that as well, I know especially in the United States we're not exposed to hearing French very much, but a lot of people like how it sounds. So if that's something you'd be interested in, let me know in the comments. Really, unless you live in the Northeast or Louisiana, you probably don't hear it all that often. But I thought I would go ahead and just read the poem so you can hear how it sounds, and maybe you can hear the rhyming in there. Dans ma maison. Je souhaite dans ma maison un homme généreux, un lapin dormant devant les livres, des poules qui donnent des œufs d'or, des enfants qui me suivent, des tas de lettres tachées de l'encre. Et voilà, c'est ma maison de mon cœur, sans laquelle je ne peux pas vivre. I certainly recommend using double-sided tape for this part because if you use glue, it's going to want to leak out and mess up your pocket or anything you stick in there before the glue is fully dry. It also might try to stick together, so double-sided tape fixes those issues. And so I wanted to add this to be kind of the centerpiece as this one page, and then the other page has more of the collage that I like to traditionally do. So hopefully you liked this hybrid episode of both the writing and the collaging and the little French poet history lesson. But I'll go ahead and be quiet now so that you can listen to the calligraphy pen writing. If you like this sort of content, sometimes I do quiet videos, sometimes I do voiceovers, and I'd love to see you back next week. I post every Sunday, and links for anything you've seen in the video are down below in the description box. Thank you so much for being here, friends. Bye!